Hello, welcome to the RMH Partner Conference. We're glad to see y'all. It's Dan King with New West Technologies here. I also have George Boucher, our VP of Business Development, and we're here to talk about our modern suite for RMH. For those of us who are familiar, then we're happy to see you again. Wish we could be doing it in person. For those of you that are not familiar with us, we'll give you just a quick background. So, founded the company in Portland, Oregon, 1992. So we're sort of like a startup here, just getting started. And we've been working in retail for quite some time. We're our RMH Reseller of the Year last year. Been a Dynamics RMS and DE365 partner for many years. We're also a cloud solution provider, and we publish our own software as an ISV, which is what we're talking about here, as Modern Suite is our IP. And we do have award-winning 24/7 US-based support. So we're really here to talk about the product, though, Modern Suite for RMH, and how we've got a lot of customers using it now, and they're pretty excited. Some of them are even raving about the smart tools and the features that it delivers. It really extends their investment in the RMH platform by improving efficiencies, gaining control over some of the more mundane tasks, and making those faster and less mundane. Inventory counting saves tons of time. You can do it while the store is open, which is much more productive. We've got PO creation with suggestive analysis. We've got receiving, label printing, all these things. And this is what people are pretty excited about. We've even added the capability to manage cashiers globally and do some of the other things that have been requested by the customers and the partners along the way.
I heard you say modern. Is that a euphemism for a new version, or is there a little bit more to it, Dan?
Oh, that's a great question, George. As you know, we've been building mobile solutions since 2004, and this is not just a new version of what you've seen in the past. It is truly a brand new design built on current technologies, and it is a proper hybrid design from our point of view. It runs over web services, but it doesn't require the cloud. It runs locally, but it gives you all the advantages of having web services delivery so that you can run it on any device: Apple, iOS, Android, Windows, Linux. Anything that's got a current browser is compatible with the solution. So that makes it very flexible in terms of working inside of your network on any device, as well as being outside the network. It runs very fast over a VPN connection and things like that.
Now, obviously, we have a very healthy customer base, so folks who are accustomed to a legacy application mobile suite. And a lot of those folks are obviously very familiar with the now retired Windows mobile platform, and a lot of them are still just warming up to the fact that this is indeed a web app. It's device agnostic, and as you mentioned, it is OS agnostic. So for some of those folks who are used to the legacy platform, what can they expect as they're transitioning to modern suite? And what is that experience like as it relates to the legacy app?
Well, it's an entirely new experience, and it's much better. It's faster. It doesn't have the dependencies on the old Windows mobile platform, which really created a lot of problems that a lot of people don't know the details behind. But ultimately, for those folks who have been using that product for all these years, there were some challenges that you had to work around, and all of those challenges are gone. I mean, we've tested this thing with very large databases, up to about 500,000 items. And we've done counts of 10,000, 20,000 items at a time, watch them post. It happens very quickly. And we don't see any type of crashing like we used to, because the application really resides where the SQL is. So the device is sort of really not that important in the whole scheme of things. I mean, you can be in the middle of an account or a PO and drop a device, run over it with a forklift, whatever it is, and you can just pick up another one and log in and continue your session. So it's actually stateful from that perspective, which makes it very robust.
Interesting. Now, I'd say because the legacy app was just entirely mobile, and it was confined to be used over a Windows mobile, anything from 5.0 to 6.x OS. Now, we're obviously trying to break a paradigm here, and it does beg the question, what are some of the biggest misconceptions of the modern suite platform? Because again, it's beyond mobile when you say.
It is beyond mobile. So that was a constraint for the old solution. The new solution is really built on a browser, which means that it can run on any device, truly mobile for phones, tablets, but also on laptops and desktops, so that it really enables them not only to do the things where they have to take a device out to inventory and it makes it more efficient there, but for some of those workflows and tasks and processes that really are typically done, at a desk or, from the back office perspective, like purchase orders and transfers, those can all be done in a user's normal environment, just in their browser tab, so that they can see it in full screen. And it gives us the advantage of being able to really lighten the load for those users to be able to be more efficient in creating those POs, especially with suggested buy.
Very cool. Now, I heard you mention at the top of the session that you actually have quite a few modules. I wanted to make sure that for some of those who are seeing the evolution of Modern Suite from its very early MMS releases, what can they now be able to expect? Can you at least give us a rundown of what's really supported in this very latest release of Modern Suite?
Yeah, it has come a long, long ways. As some of the folks who saw it early on realized, it started with inventory count. It's one of the primary functions. But we have added a ton of functionality. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the customers. So not only in these large buckets like we see these modules, but refining the actual modules themselves and the workflow, getting feedback from the customers and the partner base. We've really done a lot of work. It's been about 3 years in the making now, and we're really proud of where we're at. And there's, of course, we've got more to do. But the inventory count module is really fantastic. You can count while the store is open. You can count with multiple devices. You can have people merge those counts into one big count. It now has some very valuable summary and very granular data about the count, so you can see every over and under of every item that's on the count. And it's got some other smart features coming that will help reduce errors along the way. The PO side of it is one of the things that is pretty exciting for us, because really the old product was more of a PO receiving, and it didn't really work very well to create POs. This one is built to really do great things in terms of PO creation. So you put together a PO, and it actually goes back, and we'll show this off, but it goes back and looks at sales history from last year across a couple of periods, and then compares it to this year, a couple of periods, and then it takes the trajectory of the sales and the movement of the items and calculates a suggested buy, which is pretty fantastic, so that in the case where these purchasing agents are really trying to make sure they've got the right stocking levels, they don't have too many and they don't have too few, it gives them a quick way to sort of analyze that data without having them have to dig into the reports and everything for themselves. So that part of it to us is very exciting. The receiving process is fantastic. You can, add to a PO while you're receiving. You can over, under receive. It's got visual indicators about how those line items work. It also has an opportunity to update the supplier cost when you receive a PO. It can do that automatically, or it can prompt. So if there's a situation where you don't want it to do that, you can have it not. But ultimately, most people like to see that happen. So as new costs come in, they get updated in the supplier record. Allows for landed cost, allows for all sorts of functionality that is really quite a big requirement for a lot of customers. Of course, transfers in and out for the enterprise is a big part of it. We actually effectively transfer serial items as well. That's one of the things that this does that the old platform never did, has full serial number support for counting, PO receiving, transfers, all of those things. Of course, at the end of a PO receive or at the end of a transfer receive, oftentimes you need to print labels. So we've got that capability, not only to do it against a PO or a transfer, but also we've got the ability to do sort of a scan and print functionality now. So if you have to go out and update, let's say you've got a line of items that their price changed and you need to go update the shelf tags. So you can go out, scan the shelf tag, look it up, see if it needs to be reprinted, boom, and it'll go ahead and just reprint that. Or you can just set it to, when you scan it, it'll reprint it and you can slap it on the shelf and move on. So it saves a lot of time when you can take the work out to where the products are and the shelves are. We also added global cashier management, which is really nice, an easy way to create and edit cashiers, assign them to one store, assign them to a group of stores, assign them to all stores, whatever the use case may be, we find that many clients do it quite differently. So we added a lot of flexible options there. We're really excited about our global item management as well. So we've got the ability to edit items either at a store level or in the central level. And those edits can be distributed across the enterprise automatically. And as well, which kind of fits in with that functionality, is we put together a real nice item import utility so that it will do a adds, moves, changes kind of an import. So if the item doesn't exist, it will create it. And there are options in there to have it create the suppliers if it doesn't exist, the departments, categories, anything in the dependencies for these items, it can automatically create those as well. And then when you import the items, it'll go straight into the store database, or if you're in a central environment, it broadcasts up to central, and then of course is sent down to all the stores in near real time. So that's a piece of functionality that people were requesting quite a bit, and it allows those folks that have beginning imports to do, or there's really a lot of cases where folks get updated price lists and updated item lists, or pick up a new line of products, and they want an easy way to get those items into the system. And it's pretty fast, pretty easy.
Excellent. Now, obviously, towards the end there, you were mentioning a lot of global type of functionality, and for some of those who may or not have been part of their, maybe I presume, earlier sessions where RMH, essentially introduced the latest releases of RMH Central. We here at New West have obviously been privy to the evolution of RMH Central, as all the way from its early beta versions back in 2018, and fairly recently to the GA release. So one of the things that we wanted to obviously be able to and make sure that folks who are either sitting through this session actually understand, and those who are obviously early adopters of our modern mobile suite before it became modern suite, one of the things we wanted to cover is compatibility. And part of the thing that we've done fairly recently, and also in the very latest release that only came out a couple of weeks ago, is being able to make sure that all the components that we're writing now are forward compatible with RMH Central. What does it really mean? What that means is we respect, just like Dan was alluding to there, that we have the concept of global item management, and that also speaks to the foundation of RMH Central's store groups. So that way you could be able to now come in and inherit the store group allocations you've defined in RMH Central to be able to manage how new item records are distributed to all the other subordinate stores that you have across the enterprise. I wanted to also toss it over to you, Dan, just to talk a little bit about compatibility and some of the compatibility tools that we have built into Modern Suite as it relates to RMH Central.
Well, it's a big deal. We spent quite a bit of time making sure that we were in step with Central and able to augment and add some functionality where it didn't exist, or sort of make sure that everything was super stable for our clients. So all the communications are in what is near real time. Like we've mentioned, we've got global cashiers and global item management. Purchase orders and transfers are all universal across the enterprise. And then, things don't always go perfect. Sometimes there are challenges when you talk about syncing up multiple stores across an enterprise and everything. And mistakes and errors do happen. So we built a little component into it. It's sort of silent and nobody really sees it. We like to call it Zamboni because it sort of goes and fills in the holes like the ice machine does. And it kind of cleans up all the records. So if there's any inconsistencies between store databases, Central, then it does some comparisons and sort of make sure everything's really, in alignment, so that the reporting at the Central and the reporting at the store is really, really right on in terms of accuracy and exactly the same. And all these things, again, are, they're fully Central compatible. And it's a big jump. So these guys at RMH have been working on Central for a while. It's not a small challenge, and they've met it head on. But there's just a few things. It takes time. So we've sort of filled in some of the gaps in the back end to try and make sure that the customers don't ever see any kind of chips in the ice.
Excellent. And that is indeed one of the perhaps most understated features of RMH Central. Obviously, those who came from Microsoft Dynamics RMS HQ have nothing but familiarity with the concept of worksheets. And obviously, naturally, a lot of folks are very excited to transition from that a solution that does not have the dependencies of the 401 to be able to move data between stores and from the master database that is in central down to the stores or vice versa. So that is obviously a very, very welcome development, and the real-time web services adds a lot of value to the base RMH application. And just to repeat what you just said there, the Zamboni that we have is perhaps a pride and joy because of what it does in the back end to make sure that of all the massive data movements that RMH Central is doing and rendering that information and making it available at all the users' fingertips, irrespective of where they are at the store level or where they're in RMH Central, and moving that in near real time, that we can actually have a system that adds the concept of checks and balances into the mix to make sure that while it's doing that heavy lift, that nothing gets left behind. And a lot of our customers have found that to be a really good value add to complement what RMH has already developed within its web services to manage communication between store databases. So now we've done a lot of talking, Dan, and wanted us to get to a little bit of show and tell, if that's okay with you. So
hey, that's my favorite part. You know it. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's get in here and show this software off, and give people a taste of what we're talking about here.
Let's do it. All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a guided tour of Modern Suite. And for those of you who are already familiar with the user interface for RMH Manager, that is what you see there on the left-hand side. And what we also have here on the right-hand side is a dual view of Modern Suite. Now, Dan, just to kind of kick off the show and tell portion of the presentation, we wanted to maybe talk about physical inventory counts first, because perhaps that is maybe the most popular module within Modern Suite. And if I could preface it by saying, physical inventory counts are not the most exciting way to spend your day. And and anytime you can get a little bit of a leg up with a tool that makes your life just a little bit easier, that just saves you just a little bit more time than most users who are having to endure that task, certainly do appreciate that. And so I believe we have found a way to make this very manageable, perhaps even fun. And I'm hoping that is what some of the users are going to be able to take away from the session here. So let's go ahead and poke away and be able to stage a count and be able to show the execution of that, so we can have our users and customers and partners just march along.
Yeah, we've got retail management on the left. I've got an item pulled up here, and we'll look at some 4 or 5 items here. But just notice it's got a quantity on hand of 5 at this point. So on the right-hand side, I've got Modern Suite. I'm going to go ahead and start a count, or start a new list, I should say. So I'll say plus. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was facilitate the idea that if you were bringing people in who were not familiar with the process or all this stuff, you just needed, somebody to get out and do some counting. You didn't want to have to train them. Was that all they have to do is hit that plus button, and here we are, and we're ready to start counting. That's the amount of training it would take. So scan a barcode, ask me how many I got, 5 of those. And then what else we can do is turn on quick scan mode, which is this little lightning bolt down here. So every time I scan a barcode, it will simply increment that quantity for that item by 1. So you notice I put in 5. If I scan it again, it's going to go to 6. If I scan this barcode, it's going to add that line in 1 at a time. But if I keep scanning, it increments 1 at a time. Add this item, count a few of these, put one of these on here. So now we've got some items in our count. It really, really is easy from here, because at this point, all we got to do is commit the count, and it'll update the price, or update the on-hand quantity. So I'm going to go ahead and again point out that these batteries here, we're counting 6. There's 5 on hand at RMH. So let's go ahead and just turn this into an inventory count. It's going to give us some statistics about a count: the total cost value, sell value, total quantities counted, and unique products counted, as well as we have a over counted, so items that we over counted and items that we under counted. If we want more granular detail, we can come in and click on, let's say, view over counted, and then it shows us every item that we overcounted. So this thought we had a negative 124 on hand. Clearly we have an issue there. We counted 2, so the difference is 126. In this case, thought we had 0 on hand, we counted 6, so on and so forth. So you can get some real granular detail about the entire count. But we'll just go ahead and commit. We'll do what is a cycle commit so that it only posts data to items that we included in this count. If we did full commit, it would include all items, and anything that wasn't in the count would be set to 0. It's like a year-end count. So I'll do this, and it says, are you sure? Do you have a note from your mom? Say, yep, got a note from my mom. We'll go ahead and commit that quantity, and then we'll go over here to RMH and refresh. And you'll notice that we now have 6 on hand. So that's how easy it is to do a count. That's sort of an open count concept. We also have the ability to create scopes. So if you want to count a supplier, department, category, some sort of a custom filter, you can do that. So I'll say custom count. And instead of starting to scan into the list, we go to inventory count first. At this point, it's going to present us with some options of what we want to count. We want to count by supplier, we want to count by category, department, etc., or search term. So do we count all the things that are red? We could do that if we wanted to. I'll go supplier, and I'll pick 3Light. It found 6 products from that supplier. Okay. Now we could add more criteria. So it's a multi-tiered scoping process, so that we could actually go ahead and say not only are they from 3Light, but they have sales between or some other criteria. But I'm just going to go ahead and set that scope. And now it's pulled up all those items into this count for us so that we can go ahead and count. So I'll start scanning through some of these items. Let's say we have 4 of those. Say we have 3 of those. Say we have 6 of those. Okay, so here's an item. It can't be added because it's not in scope. So this item isn't from 3Light as a supplier. So it stops us from breaking out of the scope that was desired. From here, again, go back, inventory count. It's going to give us our summaries and our granular detail, and then we can post that as a cycle commit. And now all of those bits of data are accurate inside of RMH. All we have to do is refresh, and we'll see that now the number went down from 6 to 4. So it really is in real time. We call it near real time because there may be a second or 2. So what do you think about that, George?
That was pretty easy, even for our first-time user, because the menu seems intuitive and it kind of guides you along and allows you to basically stay within your lane, especially with the controlled scope aspect. And it also allows folks who prefer to either do a quick entry of the count and others who actually prefer to scan and count up. So I think those are critical elements that I think will be very instrumental to folks as they're counting out there. Now pivoting to something else, now that we've actually kind of covered the basics or the fundamentals of cycle counts. One of the added benefits that most of our customers are saying about Modern Suite now is the predictive analytics, and that is perhaps maybe one of the richer features that we feel very proud of as an organization. So how can RMH users best leverage it for procurement? And so that'll give us a segue into our purchase orders, if that's okay there, Dan.
That's great. I think it's a perfect next topic. We're pretty excited about what we have coming and what we have already built. We're calling them smart features. And one of the first ones that we put in here, which was by request, was to make the purchasing process easier and a little more intuitive. So what we did is we added some analytics, and I'll go ahead and show you how that looks. So I'll start a new list. I'll call it PO. Let me get the cursor here. Super PO. All right, so now I've got a list, and then I'll just go ahead and start adding some items. I'll say I want to buy 5 of these, buy 8 of those, 3 of these,
As you're
and
doing that, I think one of the things that, especially for folks who are in the beer, wine, liquor space, especially liquor stores, where one of the traditionally a sales rep will pop in and you're walking around the store and you're navigating through their list of specials for that week, and you're trying to make an educated decision about what are you going to buy to leverage whatever promotions they have. And this one resonates very well with me because we do have quite a few merchants who are beer, wine, liquor stores, and the liquor exchange between the owner or the business manager trying to make an educated decision on how many to order, and bounce that against the perceived savings from whatever specials the sales rep has. This ability to actually do a scan to add a PO on the fly is instrumental. Would you agree?
I do agree. It makes it a lot easier. You can go out and scan the items where they are, so you can see how many you have on hand very easily. You could always use the item lookup tool as well. But even better yet, not only can you do that, but what we're going to see is this is going to help us understand not only what we have on hand and what we think we've been doing in terms of sales locally recently, but how it compares to last year. And in a lot of ways, especially as you call out liquor stores, I believe across the country, their trajectories are up. So it's an important factor for these purchasing agents to understand, okay, well, how many did I sell last year and then how many did I sell this year? Because they're probably going to be ordered more than they used to. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a PO at this point, okay? So just click on the menu, click on PO. I'll say I want to do it for my primary suppliers. And what this is going to do is it's going to break out the items by supplier. We had 4 or 5 items on that list, but it broke it into 2 POs. So for the second PO for this company, supplier 3 Light, it has a few items on here because that's the primary supplier for that item, these items. Now, right away, what I want to point out is that clearly we've got some data problems. There's 0 cost and a set for this item and 0 prices. So if we want to make sure we clean that up while we're in the middle of a process, you can add items on the fly in a PO in MS. You can also edit items on the fly. So if I want to make sure that I don't have this out there, set up at 0 cost and 0 price, turns out I think, this item is probably worth $95 and probably costs us about $45. And so now we'll go ahead and save that and come back. And I think we may have to, the next PO, that'll be fixed, okay? So I'll go ahead and put that in this time, and then we'll get that total, right? I guess I put $45 in this cost, not the sell price. So that's where that is. And that will update all that. And also, when we receive this PO, it will update the supplier cost if we have told it to do so. So that'll be great. The really cool thing about it, though, is look, it shows us available quantity. If they had a reorder number in here, you'd see that. Shows us what our sales are for a period that we have defined. So you get the ability to define more than one period. So let's say we normally buy some products for 7 days, and then other products we buy in a 30-day cycle. So you get to go ahead and say, okay, my POs I want to look at from a 7-day perspective, and I want to look at a lead time for 30 days, and that'll help me understand how I'm going to run my business. So here, you'll notice we've got a suggested buy line, and this is where the magic is. So I'll hit this little ... and it'll help us explain what that really is. So what it's done is it's gone back, and it's looking, in this case, we've got 2 time periods. One is 60 days, and one is 150 days, okay? But what it's done is it's gone back and say, okay, for a 60-day number, which is what our suggested 40 is, what were the sales in 2019 for the last 60 days? And then what were the sales in 2019 for the next 60 days? Okay, And you can see in this case, the trajectory is going down a little bit. Then it also says, okay, what are our sales this year for the last 60 days? 42. Well, clearly that's way down. It's actually suggesting we buy less than we did sold last time because the sales trajectory is going down. And that's important to know because if we didn't know that, we may even be buying more than we need. And that's what people want to avoid. So I can go ahead and just click on this and it's going to change that quantity to 40, okay? What do you think about that, George?
That is absolutely incredible. Because as you know, the cost of making a poor decision in procurement could end up in really locked up revenue and dead stock that is actually not moving, which is really every retailer's nightmare. That's great.
So the other thing that's cool about it is you can do it one by one. But what we found is after people trust it, then they say, okay, this thing's working pretty good for me. It's really making sense. And instead of going through items one by one and checking and say, okay, I'm thinking I need 8, it's telling me I need 91. Of course, we could just click on here. But once we've got our phase set up in here, we can go ahead and say, okay, just mark everything that it says I need to buy for 60 days. And it'll go ahead and update those quantities based on the suggested buy. And so you don't have to do that. And that's how you can create a PO. It's got the totals. It's got the supplier name right here. We can add comments to the PO for that. We can also facilitate landed costing. So if we've got some duties or taxes or fees we want to put into the cost of goods there, we can put those in here. That can also be done at the time of receiving as well. So, but let's talk about receiving now. So once we've created this PO, and it's all ready to go now. So what we're going to do is we'll release that. Okay. Now, if we go over here into RMH and look at POs, you'll notice we've got this PO for 3 light. And it's got the items that we ordered, the 70, the 40, the 91 from our suggested buys. Okay. So again, this works in tandem, in concert with RMH in real time. So now, when you get the goods that come into the back dock, you pull up the PO out of MMS by just clicking on it, and it goes into a PO receive mode. At this point, we can take a look and say, okay, we can count through all these items. This is what the order looked like. We can do a quick receive. If we just did a quick visual inspection and we knew that it was all right, we could say, go ahead and just receive them all. Looks like it's good. If something came in that wasn't on the order, we can add a new item or add more items to it. And it takes us back into the edit screen. Or we can start just receiving. And you can receive in a number of ways. You can receive by scanning. It's going to ask us how many. I'll say I ordered receiving 5. And now you'll notice that it's gone red in the background because we're receiving less than we ordered, okay? Okay, now in this case, I received more than I ordered. So the background has gone yellow. You can also just click in here and type in the number without scanning as well. And in this case, I received exactly what I ordered. So the background is green. So it gives you a little visual indicator of how the shipment is really looking. From there, we go ahead and just receive it. And because we've got balances of items that either weren't received or they're over received, it says, hey, what do you want to do with those back ordered items? Do you want to create a new PO with just those back ordered items on it? Do you want to leave this PO open and just have another receiving session against the same purchase order for those items when they appear? Or is it one of those situations where if you don't get it, you just need to buy it again next time, close the PO out? I want to go ahead and just close the PO out. Now, this is a prime time when people need to print labels. Either they want to print labels to tag each product, or they want to print labels to set on the shelf tag. And sometimes the pricing has changed and all that stuff, so it's good to print those labels. In this case, it's hard to show printing of labels, so I'm just going to skip that step. But we do have a really cool label printing routine built in here. It's all IP based. It's super fast. You can put up multiple label formats, and you can have multiple printers. And if you can choose a default, so if 80% of the time you print one kind of tag on one printer, then it just happens. It doesn't ask any questions. But you also have the opportunity to pick different formats and different printers at the time of print. How's that look, George?
It looks terrific. I think one of the things I like most is the fact that there is visual indicators for someone who is essentially performing a receiving action to be able to see that there is just something off with what they received, whether they did an over, which you showed up there in amber or yellow, and then there was the red, which was under. So they could be able to receive away and then come back and just recount the ones that they are actually receiving to make sure that they don't do an over under by user error. And that way someone can be able to make a business decision. Do we want to take this over shipment, or do we want to send the balance back to the vendor, or do we want to go the other way? So that is very helpful in being able to have a visual indicator to avoid a human error, and also a real-time business decision opportunity to be able to either accept a back order when it's undershipped, or accept an overshipment willfully, because now you have the right information at your fingertips to help you with that decision. I thought that was terrific.
Yep, we're constantly thinking about how to make this process easier and more intuitive, and make the computers do work that the humans, they're not really built for. So I'm glad you're excited about that.
So that and the fact that it actually it pivoted back right into label printing, which those are the functions that go kind of hand in hand. Especially because we did talk a little bit about, a change in cost impacts the supply cost, which is a record that you want to modify as soon as that information is found out, certainly before you receive the goods. And so being able to go right into label printing is something that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a standard part of the workflow. And if you don't do that, then you just skip it. And if you do, then it makes it nice and easy. So I was pretty proud of that piece. We've got other smart functions and features on the roadmap. I'm not going to disclose too many of those at this point, but you'll see some that I think are going to be super mission critical as we go forward here. So let's go back and take a look at the way that you can look up and manage items here. So we've got this item on the screen here, and I'll go ahead and refresh that because we did a receive against it. So now we have more. That's the updated information after that PO was received. And then let's figure out which barcode that is. And let's look up that item here. And so this magnifying glass or binoculars allows you to do price checks. So when I go ahead and scan in an item here, it's going to pull up the information about it. In this case, I'm logged in as an administrator or a manager, so I get rich information, okay? I get information about the pricing, about sales history right here. So here's the sales history for this year compared to last year, dollars and quantities and profits. You get order history, so you can see who you bought it from last and how much you paid, so on and so forth. Got inventory quantities available, restock levels, all these are available. And let's just say that I noticed I wanted to edit these restock levels because they're at 0. So let's just go ahead and take a look at that. I can come in here, say, you know what, let's make these restocking levels something that's going to help me out if I do a min-max type of operation. So then I can do that. And now I click this pencil, and now this item has been updated in our RMH. Let's just take a look at that. So since we just made those changes, added the restocking points and restocking levels, let's open up this item and we can show off the fact that that change was made in real time. Look at this. Now you can see the level was set to 67 and the reorder point, the min is set to 5. So it just really becomes easy to clean up the data as you're moving along. You can walk out to the shelf, check price, you can see what the quantity on hand is, you can do a count real quick, maybe update that. You could see if there was information that needed to be changed. You could even print out a new shelf tag real quick. We're just trying to really make it easy for folks.
Now, Dan, we've covered quite a bit of ground, but there are still a few things that one of the pressing ones I believe that our customers have given us some feedback on was the ability to import records, particularly items. As you probably know, when you get into an RMH central environment, the ability to actually import records, especially when you're making new buys because you've picked up a new line of products, you have a new vendor, and here are about 100 items that you're looking to import. The thought of even keying those in is just daunting. And customers were suddenly eager just to even have a tool, mobile or otherwise, that would allow them to be able to import records in mass quantities. And the fact that obviously our web app is device agnostic, this is something that can be easily done over a browser, particularly over a Windows desktop, if that's obviously what they're also using to run RMH and RMH Central. Give us a little bit of a sneak peek into what we have to offer for item import.
Yep, that's an exciting one. I mean, over the years with RMS and now especially RMH, there's been a lot of inquiry about making sure people can add their new items and then also update items that are already in there that maybe have changes that need to be made. Maybe the prices or the costs or some descriptions change, or they get a new line of products. And so we've come up with an item import that really facilitates making that whole process easy. It's about as simple as we could make it. You start a blank list, come in here, and you go to import file, and then you pick the CSV that you want to import. We've got templates for you to understand, which format they need to be in, so that it's easy to make sure that all the fields are in the right place. And then what it does is it does a full adds, moves, changes import. So if it finds a record and then it doesn't exist, it'll go ahead and import the whole record. If it is a record that does exist, it will update that record. So if there's a change in the price or one of those other things, it'll just make those changes to the item that already exists. And then one of the other parts about it that's really cool is if you're creating new items and it's in the import file, it's flagged with a department that doesn't exist, or a category that doesn't exist, or a supplier, or an alias, then you get the ability to go ahead and just create those if you want to have that happen. And that's pretty powerful because it really, those are sort of more bucket categories that are important if you really want to keep your data straight. So that's a cool feature. Again, here's one of our features. This is in the configuration area, some of the options we have. You can update your supplier costs. We talked about that. Ours was set to automatic, so it just does it no matter what. Or it can ask you when you receive a PO whether you want to update that. You can have people sign when they receive a PO or a transfer to make sure they've got some sort of authorization of who that was. And that is stored, and you can reproduce that signature. You can do turn on or off quick receive. Some people want to make sure their folks count through all those boxes and items to make sure that they're accurate, as opposed to just taking a quick visual check. And then we talked about these predictive analysis and the periods of time that you can choose, and this is what this is configured to. So yeah, pretty exciting. As you can see, we map it out to a central when it's part of that environment. All these changes that we've made in this demo, they've all gone up to central and then already been broadcast out to the other stores. So when we edited the price and the restocking level on those items, that information is already distributed across the enterprise, which is pretty exciting. And it all happens in, a matter of mere seconds.
Excellent. So what is in the journey? What is next? What is coming down the pike? What is the outlook, the forecast, the feature review, whatever you want to call it? What can our customers expect?
Well, they can expect that we're going to continue to put out a product that's very stable and that runs fast. This is probably the quickest and most robust solution we've ever put together. And of course, they can count on us to support it with US-based support 24/7. I think that's important. It's also important for our partners because they get the same support that anybody who works with us does. So that's pretty key. I know you were driving at what the product features are, but I think that's an important thing to say is that we've got real U.S.-based employees, W-2 folks, and they answer the phone. So that's a big deal because nothing's perfect, or sometimes people just need to get a question answered, and we'll always be here to help. But in terms of what's going on with the product, we couldn't be any more excited. You know, we're just basically a bunch of geeks, and we sit around trying to figure out cool things that we make computers do. So we're working on a bunch of different things. We've got a reporting module come out that is going to be pretty fantastic. A full graphics-driven, remotely available through a browser reporting solution. It'll cover, you know, what you might expect: sales, inventory levels, the types of reports that most people use to run their business. So that's going to be pretty neat. We've already got some samples in the works. I can't disclose those yet, but that'll be coming pretty quick. We are also working on some more of these smart features. I think I'll just, maybe I'll uncover just one of them in this conversation, but one of them is when you're doing an inventory count and you move on to the next product, we're going to have heuristics and algorithms running in the background to go ahead and analyze the entry that the user made and do some reality checks to say, okay, does this number make sense? Number one, we always block anything over, I think it's 6 or 7 digits. So if somebody accidentally scans a barcode, you know, like a UPC into it, it won't accept that. But ultimately, somebody could put in, you know, 900,000 of something, and then it's going to look back and say, okay, well, have we ever had that many? Have we ever bought that many? Have we ever sold that many? Does that make any sense at all? And that'll also be combined with a configuration setting that you can say, if it's this much % off of what the system thinks, then flag it and make the person do a reality check. And the idea with that is that the way mostly these counts work is everybody goes and they do their work and they're trying to do their best. Sometimes people make mistakes or data's wrong, and then they get to the end of it and they analyze it and they figure out, oh geez, here's all the things that we need to double check. Go back and do that now. In this case, when we proactively let that person know that there potentially is an issue, they're hopefully pretty close to the item that they just scanned, and they can fix it along the way in their workflow, so that when it comes down to merging all those counts and getting the audit process done, that the accuracy level when it's being audited should be much, much higher, and there'll be a tremendously less amount of time that people have to go back and fix things and figure out where those items are again, and so on and so forth. So that's some stuff that's coming. We're pretty excited about it. We hope everybody is too. And what we really love is when people give us suggestions, things they'd like to see it do, because that's real stuff for us. When we know that there's a real use case and it would solve somebody's problem, we're always open-minded putting those features in and trying to work them out in ways that people can take advantage of.
Very good. And for those of you who are interested in sending us any suggestions, by all means, there are numerous ways to find us. Phone number, 800-466-7839. You can also dial it locally, 503-235-4656. You can email us at sales@newesttech.com, and certainly reach us on our website at newesttech.com. So with that, Dan, I do thank you very much for the guided tour of latest release of Modern Suite. And we certainly thank you from the team here at New West for attending our session, and we hope you enjoy the rest of this very inaugural RMH conference. Thank you.